Hi students, welcome to the online class of Lord's Public School. In 2020, it is only essential to stay alive. Do not worry about profit or losses. Do not speak about your dreams or strategy. This year, the only important thing is to stay alive. Staying alive is the biggest profit. These words are delivered by an eminent person about the present pandemic situation. You know who he is? Before revealing who he is, I want to tell you a small incident. Years back, in China, a small, lean boy who used to accompany with a foreign tourist, or he worked as a free guide because he wants to learn English. He wants to speak English. And later, that boy who failed the Chinese university entrance exam twice, and he was rejected by the KFC. No one ever believed that this boy will become the multi-billionaire one day. It's like a fairy tale, and that boy was Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba.com, the online platform for wholesale trading. These words are delivered by Jack Ma. What was the success mantra behind Jack Ma? Simple. His hard work, determination, and his struggles. There is no shortcut to success. That is what we can learn from Jack Ma's life. So, now, the last class we have completed the Tiger King from the vistas, and then we had begun another lesson, the enemy. So before starting the lesson, just a recap of the last class. The enemy is the story written by Pearl S. Buck. The main protagonist of this story is Dr. Sadawa, a Japanese surgeon and a scientist, an eminent scientist. Then his wife Hannah and the American war prisoner who washed ashore, wounded in a critical condition. Then the three servants in Sadawa's house. First one is Yumi, the babysitter, then the cook, then the gardener. Then don't forget Sadawa's father. He passed away, but this fellow, Sadawa's father, who had influenced Sadawa very much. Because one thing, Sadawa's father, he was very conventional, very orthodox. But his prime concern was his son's education. So he sent his son abroad to the US. And there, Sadawa specialized in medicine. And he was also an eminent scientist in the field of medical science. The story was set in the backdrop of the Second World War. All the medical students or all the doctors, they were sent abroad because it is wartime, except Sadawa. Because the old military general there in Japan, he needs an emergency operation at any time. So Sadawa Hoki is the best surgeon available in Japan. That's why he is still there in Japan. And there is a reference of Professor Harley. Professor Harley, he was Dr. Sadawa's teacher there in the US, and in his house Sadawa met Hannah, and he loved Hannah and married later. And now Sadawa and Hannah, the couple, they have 2 children. And come back. Now one day evening, this American war prisoner who tried to escape from the Japanese army, and they shot, but fortunately he was not dead. He washed ashore. And there Sadawa and Hannah took this American war prisoner or this Navy man to their home. Actually, this fellow was their enemy. But Sadawa, as a doctor, his ethics, the medical ethics, it is to treat anyone, even though he is your enemy. It is the duty of a doctor. So he took Sadawa home, and now he is preparing for an emergency operation because he was deeply wounded. A bullet struck in his body, and there was also other wounds because of the rocky coastline. And this is what we discussed in the last class. Now we come to the point.
So last class we have discussed the enemy deals with the conflicts between man's human feelings and the prejudices created nations at war. But Dr. Sadawa upholds the ethics of medical profession in treating an enemy. And in the last part, Dr. Sadawa asked to wash that wounded soldier, and his wife Hannah ordered the maid Yumi, but Yumi refused to do so because the servants, they were illiterate and they don't know the ethics, or they don't think like Hannah or Sadawa. They were educated people, and because of patriotism they refused, especially Yumi refused to wash this white man. So stupid Yumi, she muttered fiercely. Fiercely means violently or angrily. Hannah, again, she thought, is this anything but a man and a wounded helpless man? So actually this fellow is a wounded man. Though he is an enemy, but still he is a wounded man. Humanity comes first. In this conviction of her own superiority, she bent impulsively and untied the knotted rugs that kept the white man covered. When she had his breast bare, she dipped the small clean towel that Yumi had brought into the steaming hot water and washed his face carefully. The man's skin, though rough with exposure, was of a fine texture and must have been very blunt when he was a child. So here Yumi rejected. That's why Hannah is ready to wash this white man. And her conviction means belief. The knotted, K-N-O-T-T-E-D, knotted means tied, T-I-E-D, tied. Then the word texture means the feel or shape of a surface. Blunt means golden brown in color. So here she looks the skin tone of the young white man, and actually there forms some sympathy towards this creature, this fellow. And now, while she was thinking these thoughts, though not really liking the man better now that he was no longer a child, she kept on washing him until his upper body was quite clean. So she's washing this young fellow, and he's no longer a child, but she couldn't sympathize with him more because this fellow is her enemy, and she dared not to turn him over. Where was Sadawa? Now her anger was ebbing. Ebbing means declining, in a low state or reducing. So she's washing this white man and she's searching, where is Sadawa? And she was anxious again, and she rose, wiping her hands on the wrong towel. Then, lest the man be chilled, she put the quilt over him. Lest is a grammatical phrase. Lest means unless or otherwise or if not. The meaning of lest is unless or otherwise or if not. If we use lest in a sentence, we have to use the auxiliary verb should. If let comes, use the auxiliary verb should. For example, work hard lest you should fail. Work hard lest you should fail. So, now, Sadawa, she called softly. He had been about to come in when she called. His hand had been on the door, and now he opened it. She saw that he had brought his surgeon's emergency bag and that he wore his surgeon's coat. So now Sadawa came there with his clothes he used to do operations, and also his surgical kits. He is ready for an emergency operation. You have decided to operate? She cried. Hannah asked Sadawa, so you have decided to operate this man, right? Yes, he said shortly. He turned his back to her and unfolded a sterilized towel upon the floor of the tokonoma alcove and put his instruments out upon it. So he replied positively, and then he turned his back to her and unfolded a sterilized towel used for the operations, and upon the floor of the tokonoma alcove. Tokonoma means a niche or an alcove in a Japanese home for displaying a flower arrangement, kakimono or other piece of art. It's a place. Alcove means a small opening area set off from a larger room. So there he placed the towel and he put all his instruments out upon it. Now Dr. Sadawa said, Hannah, fetch the towels, bring the towels. She went obediently, but now anxious, to the linen shelves and took out the towels. There ought also to be old pieces of matting so that the blood would not ruin the fine floor covering. She went out to the back veranda where the gardener kept strips of matting with which to protect delicate shrubs on cold nights, and took an armful of them. So when she went to fetch the towels, she thought about the floor matting. Those matting, they were coarse and rich. So she remembered some old mats there they used in the garden, in the nursery. And she went there to fetch those mats, but when she returned back, she saw the room was full of blood, because that man, he was bleeding. His blood had already soaked through the packing in the man's wound and had ruined the mat under him. So she brought the old mat, but now it's useless because the man is bleeding and already the floor is covered with the blood. Oh, the mat, she cried. The man was bleeding, but Hannah cried, "Oh, my mat." "Yes, it's ruined," Sadawa replied, as though he did not care. "Help me to turn him," he commanded her. Yes, Sadawa replied simply, "It's ruined already. You come here and help me to turn this man." She obeyed him without a word, and he began to wash the man's back carefully. So Hannah obeyed without uttering any word, and she came and helped Sadawa. "Yumi would not wash him," she said. "Did you wash him then?" Sadawa asked, not stopping for a moment. His swift, concise movements. So Hannah told Sadawa that Yumi refused to wash this man. Yumi, the babysitter. Suddenly Sadawa asked, "Then did you wash him?" "Yes. Actually, it is Hannah who washed him." But still, Sadawa is fully concentrating on his activity, because his hands are moving in swift and concise manner. Swift means fast. Concise means brief yet including all important information. "Yes," she said. He did not seem to hear her, but she was used to his absorption when he was at work. She wondered for a moment if it mattered to him what was the body upon which he worked so long, as it was for the work he did so excellently. So Sadawa is doing his duty. He is not concentrating what Hannah is said. He is fully immersed into this operation, and he is doing it with swift movements, and he is doing excellently, and Hannah is watching. "You will have to give the anesthetic if he needs it," he said. Suddenly Sadawa asked Hannah, "Hannah, you will have to give this man anesthetic if he needs anesthesia." "I," she repeated blankly, "but never have I." She felt shocked. She said, I have never had this before." "It's easy enough," he said impatiently. He was taking out the packing now, and the blood began to flow more quickly. He peered into the wound with the bright surgeon's light fastened on his forehead. "The bullet is still there," he said with cool interest. "Now I wonder how deep this rock wound is. It is not too deep. It may be that I can get the bullet. But the bleeding is not superficial. He has lost much blood." So Sadawa removed the moss covered over his wound. Suddenly the blood flowed more quickly, and he peered the wound with his bright surgeon's light on his head, and with his sharp finger he found out the bullet, and he examined the wound, and he said, "It is too deep, that it may be that I can get the bullet. But the bleeding is not superficial." Superficial means shallow, because the bleeding is too deep, and he has lost much blood. This white man lost much blood. At this moment Hannah choked. Choke means to be difficult to breathe. And then he looked up and saw her face the color of sulfur, which means, having seen all these bloody visuals, she felt to vomit. That's why. "Don't faint," he said sharply. He did not put down his exploring instrument. "If I stop now, the man will surely die." So suddenly Sadawa warned his wife, "Don't faint. If I stop this now, this man will surely die." So suddenly Hannah clapped her hands to her mouth and leaped up and ran out of the room. Outside the garden, he heard her retching. Retching means to make an unsuccessful effort to vomit. She's making so many unsuccessful efforts to vomit. But he went on with his work. But Sadawa, he paid no attention to that. He went on what he was doing. It will be better for her to empty her stomach, he thought. He had forgotten that, of course, she had never seen an operation. But her distress and his inability to go to her at once made him impatient and irritable with this man who lay like dead under his knife. So this was her first experience. She hasn't witnessed operation before. That's why this vomiting tendency. This man, he thought, there is no reason under heaven why he should live. Unconsciously, this thought made him ruthless. Ruthless means without pity. Actually, this man has no right to live because this soldier is their enemy. That's why his hands moving ruthlessly, and he proceeded swiftly, so fast. In his dream, the man mourned, but Sadawa paid no attention except to mutter at him. So Sadawa paid no attention to that man's mourning. He is crying faintly. Still, he went on his operation. Groan, he muttered. Groan if you like. I am not doing for this my own pleasure. In fact, I do not know why I am doing it. Sadawa said, groan. You just groan. I do not know why I am doing this. It's not for my pleasure. But still, I am doing this because there is a tug of war is going on in his mind between his ethics, medical ethics, and his patriotism. Eventually, his ethics won over patriotism. That's why this man is doing this enemy soldiers operation. The door opened and there was Hannah again. Where is the anesthetic? She asked in a clear voice. So suddenly the door opened. Hannah was there. She was determined. She asked Dr. Sadawa, where is the anesthetic? Sadawa motioned with his chin. It is as well that you came back, he said. This fellow is beginning to stir. So Sadawa just showed her the anesthetic and said, it's better you came back because this man is actually going to wake. She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand. But how shall I do it? She took the anesthetic, that bottle, and then some cotton in his hand. And she asked, how can I use this? Simply saturate the cotton and hold it near his nostrils. Sadawa replied without delaying for one moment the intricate detail of his work. Intricate means having a great deal or detailing of his work. Sadawa, without stopping his work, he said, you just saturate the cotton with that anesthetic and then put it near his nostrils. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. So when he breathes badly, move it away a little. She crouched close to the sleeping face of the young American. It was piteously thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. So Hannah bent towards that white man to give anesthesia. And he was piteously thin. His face was piteous. Piteously means pathetically. She thought, and the lips were twisted. His lips were twisted. And the man was suffering, whether he knew it or not. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the sufferings of prisoners were true. Hannah heard so many stories about the war prisoners, about the struggles, sufferings, tortures they have faced there. And now she is going to believe such stories because of the pathetic state of this man. He was captured by the Japanese soldiers and put him in jail, and he was a war prisoner. They tortured this fellow too much, and there are signs in his body. And they came like flickers of rumor, told by word of mouth and always contradicted. In the newspapers, the reports were always that wherever the Japanese armies went, the people received him gladly, with cries of joy at their liberation. But sometimes she remembered such men as General Takima, who at home beat his wife cruelly, though no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. So, during the time of war, normally the media, they are glorifying their soldiers, their military generals. Here also, the media, they are popularizing their soldiers. Wherever they go, the people receiving them with enthusiasm, with joy. And there are some people, for example, General Takima, a military general there. He was a hero in their country because he fought bravely in the Battle of Manchuria. But in his personal life, he beat his wife regularly. As a husband, he was a failure. But no media mentioned about that in public. So, if a man like that could be so cruel to be a woman in his power, would he not be cruel to one like this, for instance? So, Hannah thought, such a man who is so cruel to his wife, then how he handled his enemy prisoner, no doubt he will torture this fellow very badly. She hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. It was at this moment that she observed deep red scars on his neck, just under the ear. For a moment, she thought this man had not been tortured by the Japanese soldiers. It was at this moment, suddenly she noticed there are some deep red scars on his neck and there just under the ear. And she pointed out those scars to Sadawa. But he did not answer. At this moment, he felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard, dangerously near the kidney. Suddenly, he felt something near his kidney. All thought left him. He felt only the purest pleasure. He probed. Probed means examine deeply. With his fingers, delicately. Delicately means simply. Familiar with every atom of his body. Because Sadawa is the best surgeon in Japan. That's why he can do it this with an ease. So he can find out that bullet. He can trace that bullet very simply. So a kind of pleasure. Because he knows every atom of human body. His old American professor of anatomy had seen to that knowledge. So we said Professor Hurley, he always says this, that ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin. So, cardinal means the most important. So if you are ignorant of the human body and if you are going to do an operation, it is a sort of murder. It is a cardinal sin. Just Alexander Pope once said, an eminent writer and critic, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Just like if you have only little knowledge about human body and if you are going to do an operation, then it is something like you are going to commit a murder, a crime. So to operate without as complete knowledge of the body as if you had made it anything less than that is murder. I hope you understand this part of the story. Now the operation is going on, and can Sadawa save this man or not? That is the next part of the story. And one more, how can he how can he keep this man there in his house? Because this fellow is their enemy. I hope you all understand today's class. Before winding up our class, remember, today is hard, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. So be optimistic, never give up. Thank you and have a nice day.